Amma hummed softly to herself as she moved around her small but cozy kitchen in Accra, carefully chopping onions and peppers, stirring pots, and tasting sauces. Tonight wasn't just any night. It was a special dinner she had been planning for weeks. She wanted everything to be perfect for Kofi, her boyfriend, and his close friends. The thought of them laughing together, sharing stories, and enjoying her cooking made her heart flutter. The smell of spicy jollof rice filled the air, blending with the scent of grilled chicken sizzling on the pan. Amma arranged the dishes on the dining table with care, adding little touches. A small vase of fresh flowers, neatly folded napkins, and soft candlelight that flickered across the room. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but inside her home, it felt warm, safe, and full of love. Every detail mattered to Amma. She had picked Kofi's favorite music to play in the background, made sure the drinks were chilled just right, and even baked a small cake for dessert. Her excitement was contagious. She imagined the smiles on their faces, the laughter that would echo through her home, the way Kofi would squeeze her hand and whisper how much he appreciated her effort. But beneath her joy, there was an invisible tension she couldn't see. Kofi, the person she trusted most, had a secret plan, one that would twist the night into something she never imagined. As Amma wiped her hands on her apron and peeked at the clock, her heart beat faster, full of hope and love. She couldn't know that soon, everything she had poured into this evening would be used against her in the cruelest way. The room was alive with anticipation, filled with the warmth of her care and the smells of a home-cooked feast. Amma smiled to herself, blissfully unaware that the night she hoped would bring happiness and closeness would soon turn into a moment she would never forget, a night where trust and love would collide with betrayal. The room was filled with laughter and clinking cutlery as everyone settled around the table. Amma felt a warm glow inside her, thinking about how happy Kofi and his friends seemed. But suddenly, Kofi stood up, clearing his throat as if he had something important to say. Amma's heart skipped a beat. She smiled, expecting a kind word or a toast. Instead, she noticed a strange glint in his eyes, one she hadn't seen before. "Everyone," Kofi began, his voice loud enough to silence the chatter, "I just want to say a few things about us." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. Amma's stomach twisted, a small knot of worry forming. And then it happened. With a cruel smile, he leaned in and said, "Amma doesn't really belong in my world." The words hit her like a cold wave. The room went quiet, and all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some friends glanced awkwardly at each other, unsure where to look. A few tried to hide smiles, and others looked shocked, their eyes darting away from Amma. Her hands trembled, her face burning with shame, as if the heat of embarrassment had seeped into her very bone. She wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor and vanish. The meal she had spent hours preparing, the love she had poured into every detail of the evening, felt meaningless now. Kofi's words kept coming, sharp and cutting. He mocked her financial struggles, turning the things she had always felt insecure about into public jokes. Each sentence felt like a strike, each laugh that followed like a hammer against her chest. Amma forced herself to sit still, her mind racing, heart shattering, as the people she had hoped would share the warmth of friendship now became silent spectators to her humiliation. Tears threatened to fall, but she clenched her jaw, refusing to let them spill. The whispers, the glances, the laughter, they all mixed into a whirlwind of shame and disbelief. She had trusted Kofi, believed in his love, and tonight that trust was being torn apart in front of everyone she cared about. Every smile she had imagined, every moment of happiness she had hoped for, was replaced by a heavy, crushing emptiness. Amma felt her world collapsing, piece by piece, around the carefully set table. The warmth, the laughter, and the joy she had worked so hard to create were gone, replaced by the cold sting of betrayal. In that moment, she realized how deep the wound ran, how cruel the person she had loved could be, and how her life would never feel the same again. Amma felt the sting of Kofi's words like a heavy weight pressing on her chest. Her cheeks were hot, her hands trembling slightly, but she didn't let a single tear fall. She took a slow, steadying breath and forced a polite smile, nodding at Kofi as if she could bear his cruel words with calm dignity. Inside, however, her mind was a storm. Anger, hurt, and disbelief churned together, each emotion hitting harder than the last. She remembered every insult he had thrown her way, every mocking look he had given, every whisper meant to humiliate her. Each memory flared inside her like a small fire, fueling a quiet determination she hadn't known she had. The room seemed to shrink around her, filled with the whispers and stares of friends who didn't know how to react, some looking away, some glancing with curiosity, and a few smirking. Amma felt invisible and exposed at the same time, humiliated yet strangely aware that she had a choice in this moment. She kept her head high, swallowing the sharp taste of shame. She could feel Kofi watching her, waiting for a reaction, and she refused to give him the satisfaction. Her lips stayed curved in a soft smile, but inside, she was carefully cataloging every slight, every jab, every moment of disrespect. She knew she couldn't fight him tonight, not with words, not with anger, but she could fight in her own way. In the quiet corners of her mind, a vow began to form. She would rise above this, she promised herself. She would show him that his humiliation could not define her, that the person he tried to belittle was stronger, smarter, and more capable than he would ever understand. The seed of resolve grew with every heartbeat, wrapping around her sadness and turning it into determination. Amma's heart ached, but her spirit refused to break. While everyone else saw her as weak, timid, or poor, she began to see herself in a new light, resilient, patient, and quietly powerful. The pain of this night, sharp and raw as it was, became a fuel she could use. She would not cry, she would not plead, and she would not beg. One day, she would rise above, and when that day came, Kofi and everyone who had doubted her would see the woman she truly was, unshakable, unstoppable, and unafraid. As the last guests shuffled out and the clinking of plates faded, Amma lingered near the kitchen, trying to steady her shaking hand. Her chest still ached from the evening's humiliation, every memory of Kofi's cruel words replaying in her mind. That's when Nana, one of Kofi's friends, came up quietly and gestured for her to follow him away from the other. His eyes were serious, almost urgent, and Amma felt a flicker of curiosity mixed with caution. Once they were out of earshot, Nana lowered his voice. "Amma, I need to tell you something," he said, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "Kofi, he's been cheating on you, with someone wealthy. The whole dinner, it wasn't about you. It was about him, trying to look good in front of his friends. He wanted to humiliate you to boost his ego." Amma's stomach dropped. Her lips parted, but no words came. The pain of betrayal twisted even deeper now that she understood the full truth. Nana continued, his voice soft but firm. "Amma, you have to know, he doesn't value you. He never really has. His arrogance will be his own downfall. You don't deserve this." Her mind raced, each word sinking in slowly, igniting a fire that had been buried beneath the hurt. For the first time that night, a sense of clarity cut through the confusion and shame. She realized how wrong Kofi had been, how small his world really was, and how powerless he would always be compared to her strength. A slow, determined smile began to form on her face. It wasn't the smile of someone who was happy, but the smile of someone who had just found a spark of power within themselves. She felt the weight of his betrayal shift into a quiet energy, one she could shape into something unstoppable. Nana's words rang in her ears like a call to action. She didn't need his approval, his love, or his recognition. What she needed was her own courage, her own plan, and her own rise. Amma took a deep breath, letting the fire inside her grow. The humiliation, the tears, the mocking laughter, they were all behind her now. In that whispered moment with Nana, she realized that the life she thought she had lost was actually the one that had opened her eyes to what she truly deserved. And in that realization, a quiet, fierce determination settled in her chest, one that would change everything. Amma walked through the next few days with a calm, almost quiet smile that surprised everyone, even herself. She greeted Kofi politely whenever their paths crossed, even complimenting him in front of friends, her voice warm and steady. On the outside, it looked like she was moving on gracefully, like nothing could touch her. But inside, her mind was anything but calm. Every polite word, every nod, every smile was carefully measured, a mask she wore while she quietly planned her comeback. She thought about the humiliation she had endured, the way Kofi had mocked her in front of the people she cared about. The shame, the embarrassment, and the anger had not faded. Instead, they had transformed into something sharper, more focused. Amma realized that this moment, painful as it was, could become the turning point of her life. She refused to let despair take over. Instead, she used it as fuel to think, plan, and strategize. Amma started listing all the ways she could change her life. She remembered her late uncle's small inheritance in Kumasi, something she had long ignored, and other opportunities she had overlooked. She began researching investments, thinking about small businesses she could start, and considering ways to build her skills and network. Every idea she wrote down, every plan she mapped out, added to her growing sense of power. She wanted wealth, yes, but she also wanted respect, a presence that no one could belittle or humiliate. Even when she saw Kofi flaunting his arrogance, Amma's smile never wavered. She treated him with courtesy, never showing the storm inside. It was part of her plan. She knew that when the time came, she would rise quietly, methodically, and without anyone seeing her power until it was unstoppable. The thought of surprising him, of showing him the woman he had tried to break, made her pulse quicken with a mix of excitement and determination. Every evening, she reviewed her plans, refining them, thinking about the steps she needed to take to become untouchable. The humiliation of that dinner was no longer just a wound. It had become her motivation. Amma could feel her confidence growing alongside her strategy. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was preparing to thrive, to reclaim her life fully, and to prove that no one, not even Kofi, could ever make her feel powerless again. Her calm demeanor became her strength, hiding the fire within. Behind the polite smiles and careful words, Amma was building herself into a force that no one could ignore. Every plan, every careful move, every silent decision brought her closer to the life she was determined to create, a life of wealth, respect, and unshakable power. And deep down, she knew that when that day came, she wouldn't just succeed. She would triumph in a way that would leave Kofi and everyone who doubted her speechless. Amma couldn't stop thinking about the inheritance her late uncle had left her in Kumasi, a small business she had long ignored, buried under the chaos of life and her relationship with Kofi. Now, that forgotten opportunity felt like a key turning in a lock. She realized that the very thing she had overlooked could be the foundation of the life she wanted. Without hesitation, she contacted the business managers, claimed what was rightfully hers, and began taking control. At first, it felt strange to step into this new role. The small office in Kumasi, the stacks of papers, the meetings with employees, it all seemed overwhelming. But Amma's determination was stronger than her fear. She spent long hours learning everything she could about running a business, making smart choices, and connecting with people who could help her grow. Every small success, every wise decision, added to her confidence. She felt a thrill she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of power growing quietly inside her. Amma didn't stop there. She began exploring other opportunities, small local startups, online businesses, anything that seemed promising. She invested wisely, studied trends, and learned how to make her money work for her. Slowly, quietly, her fortune started to grow. She was building something far bigger than she had imagined, a life that was completely her own. Meanwhile, Kofi continued flaunting his arrogance in front of friends, completely unaware of the transformation happening right under his nose. He thought Amma was the same timid, powerless woman he had mocked at that dinner. He didn't see her late-night calls with investors, her careful planning, or her growing confidence. Every laugh he shared with his friends, every smug comment he made, only fueled Amma's determination. She smiled quietly to herself, knowing that he had no idea how untouchable she was becoming. Amma began to feel a deep sense of pride. The pain and humiliation she had suffered were no longer weights on her shoulders. They were the fuel driving her forward. She was creating a life where no one could humiliate her again, where she would have wealth, respect, and independence. Every decision she made, every step she took, brought her closer to a reality where she could walk into any room with confidence, knowing her value, and never depend on anyone like Kofi for validation. As her fortune quietly grew, Amma felt a thrilling sense of freedom. She was no longer the girl who had endured mockery and pain. She was becoming someone who could command respect, someone whose presence alone could change how people saw her. The woman Kofi had humiliated was no longer the same. She was stronger, smarter, and unstoppable, and the best part was that he had no idea it was happening. A few months had passed since Amma quietly started building her new life, and now she was ready to step into it fully. That evening, she drove up to a popular restaurant in Accra for a business dinner, but she wasn't in the modest car she used to own. Instead, she pulled up in a shiny, red Lamborghini that gleamed under the city lights, its engine purring like a warning. The crowd on the sidewalk and diners inside couldn't help but turn their heads, but Amma's focus was elsewhere. Inside the restaurant, Kofi was sitting with his usual group of friends, laughing loudly, his smug confidence filling the room. Then he saw her. His laugh froze midair. His jaw dropped. The smirk he always wore like armor vanished instantly. Eyes widened around the table as everyone noticed her car, and for the first time, Amma saw Kofi's world pause. The arrogance that had once made him untouchable cracked, just for a moment. Amma parked carefully and stepped out of the Lamborghini, moving with grace and control. Every step was deliberate, her heels clicking lightly against the pavement, each movement radiating confidence. Her outfit was stylish and perfect for the evening, her smile calm but powerful, carrying a quiet message. She had changed, and there was no going back. Inside, Kofi's humiliation was almost palpable. He looked around nervously, realizing that the woman he had mocked and tried to humiliate had transformed into someone completely untouchable. Amma's presence filled the room without a single word. Friends, business partners, and strangers alike couldn't take their eyes off her, and Kofi's group felt the shift immediately. The laughter and jokes that had once surrounded him seemed hollow now, replaced by whispers and glances. Amma paused at the entrance, letting the moment linger just long enough. Her eyes met Kofi's for a brief second, and she could see the shock, the regret, and the disbelief flicker across his face. But she didn't rush to speak or explain. The Lamborghini, her poise, and the aura of success she carried were enough to make her. She had worked quietly, endured, and grown, and now her transformation spoke louder than any words ever could. As she walked toward the restaurant doors, heads turned, whispers followed, and Kofi remained frozen in place. The tables had turned completely, and for the first time, Amma felt the satisfaction of standing tall in her own power. She wasn't seeking revenge in anger. She was simply showing the world, and Kofi, what she had always been capable of. The little girl he thought he could crush had become a woman unstoppable, respected, and untouchable. Kofi couldn't believe his eyes. Amma, the woman he had mocked and humiliated, was now walking toward the restaurant with the confidence of someone completely untouchable. His face went pale, and his usual smirk vanished. For a moment, he just stared, unable to speak. Then, nervously, he got up from his table and hurried toward her, his friends watching in stunned silence. "Amma, wait," he stammered, his voice shaky. I didn't mean," he tried to explain, to justify, even to charm her back, but his words sounded hollow, even to him. Every attempt to regain control failed. The woman standing before him was calm, collected, and completely unshaken by his panic. Amma listened quietly, her eyes steady on his face. She remembered every moment of humiliation he had caused her, the mocking words, the sneers, the laughter at her expense. And instead of reacting with anger, she allowed herself to feel the satisfaction of seeing how powerless he looked now. Her calmness was deliberate, a mirror of the composure she had forced herself to maintain the night he humiliated. She let him take in the full picture. Her luxury car parked outside gleamed under the city lights, a clear sign of the wealth she had quietly built. Her outfit was elegant, her posture perfect, radiating confidence. Every movement she made whispered success and independence. Kofi's attempts to charm her sounded weak against the aura of power she exuded. The tables had turned completely. Kofi's friends exchanged looks, whispering among themselves, sensing the shift. The man who had seemed so confident and untouchable now appeared small and embarrassed. Amma could feel the subtle energy in the air, the tension, the shock, the realization that she was no longer the person he could control. Instead of answering his pleas, Amma smiled softly, letting her presence speak louder than words. She didn't need to yell, argue, or cry. Everything she had worked for, every late night, every careful decision, every risk she had taken was on display in that moment. Kofi could see what he had lost, and more importantly, he could see what he could never take away: her strength, her dignity, and the life she had built on her own terms. As Kofi faltered, Amma finally stepped past him, walking into the restaurant with her head held high. Every step echoed her journey from humiliation to triumph. She wasn't just confronting him with words. She was confronting him with her success, her independence, and the fact that she was now untouchable, admired, and unstoppable. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and Amma savored the quiet but undeniable victory she had earned. Amma paused just long enough to let Kofi see her clearly. She looked him in the eye and spoke softly, but with a power that made him shiver. "I once loved you, Kofi," she said, her voice calm, steady. "I wanted to grow with you, to build a life together. But I've learned that the life I want, the respect and opportunities one deserve, are things you could never give me." Kofi's jaw dropped, and for the first time, he had no words that could fix what he had done. His friends watched in stunned silence, realizing the woman they had seen as meek and powerless had completely transformed. Amma didn't wait for him to respond. She turned gracefully, her head held high, and walked into the restaurant. Inside, the atmosphere shifted immediately. Her new friends, investors, and business partners greeted her warmly, shaking her hand, smiling, and making her feel like the powerful woman she had become. Every step she took was a statement. She had chosen herself, her dreams, and her worth over someone who tried to humiliate her. As she moved through the room, Amma felt a sense of deep satisfaction. She wasn't just showing Kofi that she had changed. She was living the life he had denied her. Every smile, every handshake, every polite conversation she had with her new circle reinforced that she was unstoppable, respected, and admired. The Lamborghini outside, the stylish outfit, the confidence she carried, these were not just symbols of wealth, but of her independence and strength. Kofi remained frozen near the entrance, unable to understand how the woman he had underestimated had completely outgrown him. Amma felt no need for revenge through words or anger. The life she was now living was her message, louder and clearer than anything she could have said. In that moment, Amma realized something important. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's choosing yourself, pursuing your dreams relentlessly, and showing the world, and those who doubted you, what they lost. And as she mingled with her new circle, feeling the respect and admiration around her, Amma knew she had made the most powerful choice of all. She was living her dream, and nothing could take that away. Months had passed, and Amma was hosting a beautiful rooftop dinner in Accra. The city lights sparkled around her, matching the energy of the night. Her guests included her new circle of friends, successful business partners she had met along the way, and her supportive family, all gathered to celebrate not just her achievements, but the journey that had brought her here. The table was filled with delicious food, laughter floated through the air, and the atmosphere was full of warmth and joy. As she moved among her guests, exchanging smiles and stories, Amma couldn't help but think back to Kofi. She remembered his arrogance, his cruelty, and how close she had come to letting his words and actions define her. But instead of breaking her, those painful moments had sparked something inside her, a determination to rise, to prove her worth to herself, and to build a life on her own terms. Every success she had achieved since then felt even sweeter because it had been forged from that pain. Outside, her red Lamborghini gleamed under the rooftop lights, a quiet symbol of the life she had worked hard to create. But it wasn't the car or the wealth or even the recognition that made her feel unstoppable. It was the realization that she had taken control of her own story, turned her pain into power, and surrounded herself with people who truly valued and respected her. Amma paused for a moment to take it all in. The laughter, the conversations, the joy, the pride in her family's eyes. She smiled to herself, feeling an unshakable sense of strength. She was no longer defined by Kofi's cruelty or anyone else's opinion. She was powerful, respected, and completely unshakable. In that moment, she knew she had won, not through revenge, but by creating a life she loved and owning every part of her journey.